Hello and welcome to Forever Red Devils and big week ahead for United because we are entering the last sort of period of the transfer window, and after that shocking loss to Brighton on Sunday, we've got to make signings. We've got to get people out, we've got to get players in, and we've got to make sure that when we go into the second half of the season, we are doing so with a squad that Amrin can trust, because that's the biggest problem at the moment. Ruben Amrin cannot trust his players. And was quite right, I think, when they spoke about them as being the worst squad in United history. It was absolutely abysmal what we saw over the weekend, and things need to change. They have to change. So it's difficult to understand sort of how they're going to change as well, to be honest, because we just can't actually put a finger on what is going on at the club. You know, you go and put in a performance, even last week against Southampton, where terribly in the first half, second half, come back, you know, Amadeo hat-trick. You're now strung a decent set of results, and you haven't lost in the end, and then you go and lose to Brighton, who've been in woeful form, and you lose in 3-1 as well. You know, like, it's not even like it's close. So it's getting pathetic, and I just don't know what the issue is. You can't actually pin down what the issue is, because it's easy to sit there and say it's an issue of player quality and that the players are good enough, but these are the players that, you know, got that draw against Arsenal and pushed it to penalties and won with 10 men. These are the players that drew 2-2 against Liverpool and probably should have won the game. These are the same players that got that City result. So why is it that these players can get up for these sort of games, and then a game against Southampton they go 1-0 down, for example, thank you, managed to turn it around, and then a game against Brighton they completely buckle and lose 3-1, and you got mistakes coming from Onana, and just, you know, it's just so poor, and it's so difficult to understand exactly what's going on. Because again, you can talk about a weak mentality, but then again, you've got these results over the season where it shows a really decent mentality. So I don't really know what the answer is, to be perfectly honest. But the good news is that there is some movement in the transfer market. So we are going to be talking about the big ones. We're going to do a Patrick Dorgu update, an Antony update, a Garnacho update, Marcus Rashford update, which sort of seems to have gone quiet at the moment. And I think what's quite interesting is that Laurie Whitwell has actually got an update on potentially a second signing for United, and we need it, don't we? We really do. Obviously, we all know that the summer transfer window is going to be the big one. That's going to be where we're going to see our bigger signings, and that's where we're going to see more activity from United. But if there are deals to be done in January, we've got to pursue them. And with about a week and a half left of the transfer window, we need to now start really ramping up our pursuits of certain players so that we can start getting players in. But let's get into that, shall we? And before we do, smash like on the video, subscribe to the channel as well. On the road to 500 subscribers, just hit the 300 mark. So trying to get to 400 and then 500 as we go. But yeah, so welcome your shoes saying hi from California. I hope everything's all right all that side, obviously with everything going on there. But let's get into some transfer news, shall we? And we'll start with the good news, because as United fans, we need good news at the moment, don't we? You know, it's very difficult to find silver linings. And the only silver lining really we currently have is this, and that is Antony leaving. So we've actually got a here we go from Fabrizio Romano yesterday. Antony is set to join Real Betis on loan for the remainder of the season. This was the that's the Dorgu absolutely. I've actually lost my. There we go. Here was the here we go deal we got from Fabrizio Romano. So he says, Antony to Real Betis. Here we go. Verbal agreement in place between all parties with Man United. Two documents being checked, and then a travelling and medical tests. United are going to then leave on loan. There's no buy clause, unfortunately, and we'll be back in United in June. Now, apparently, we will be paying a portion of his wages, which is probably about right. Given how much we pay our players. No club can really afford to take on all those wages. But this is a really good sign. First of all, he's been shocking. Probably the worst signing in Manchester United history. Which I think sounds harsh, but is pretty close to being pretty unsung in all honesty. And the big thing what we need from him is he needs to go and play well. He needs to go and score goals. He needs to go and show that there's a player there that can work with. So we can offload him. We're probably going to lose up to like 50, 60 million pounds loss on offloading him, but we've got to get him out of the squad. That's the main thing. You know, at the end of the day, he's so far from being good enough to be at United. We cannot have him eating up our wages. We cannot having him taking up the place in the squad. I would rather be having a youth player take this time because he's shocking. You know, I mean, that miss 2 games ago, it's harder to score. I mean, to miss rather than to score, and he manages to do it. So, yeah, that's pretty good news. And, I saw a new update. I think it's at the top here. I was looking at earlier that he is set to fly to Seville, I think, today. So, yeah, that was about 12 minutes ago, coming from MUFC MVP. And that is from one of the Spanish sources saying Antony will travel in the next few hours to complete his loan move to Real Betis. So, hopefully, we could have an announcement that Antony has departed the club on loan for the rest of the season by the end of the day, which would be a really, really good move. Joshua Solana saying similar to the Di Maria transfer in his opinion. Yeah, I think. Although I think Di Maria, I think it's interesting because Di Maria, a lot of people call, for example, Judas and the likes. I mean, he wasn't terrible from a stats point of view. He wasn't what we've seen at Real Madrid from the likes, but he didn't have a dreadful time in terms of the numbers that he pulled. The reason we hate Di Maria's move so much is the fact that he then boycotted coming back, for example. He badmouthed the club and, the way he left. And that's why when he came back and Antony shoved him in, and Ashley Young shoved him into an advertising board, we were all quite chuffed. But he got 32 games, 11 assists, 4 goals. So it's 15 goal involvements in 32 games. It's not phenomenal for what we paid for him, but it's not bad. And that was only one season. You kind of think that he'll get, he would have posted better numbers. I mean, we got better numbers out of him than Juventus, for example. But very, very far away from the numbers he pulled out of Real Madrid. So this is an interesting. I mean, the Antony one's a bit different in terms of I don't think we've got too many issues with Antony as a person. He's never badmouthed the club, for example. There's never been any sort of issues with him from a professionalism point of view. He's just been really, really bad. And we can't have players of his sort of standard in the club and expect to progress. That is the reality. We got to make sure that we are better, making better signings. And speaking of better signings, a bit of an update. There's been quite a few different updates, but Fabrizio Romano's also given an update on that, and I'm going to move to it. But this is one of the reports that you saw earlier, and basically saying, I'll actually move that down a little bit. There we go. So apparently, United have opened up talks. So Fabrizio Romano is reporting that United have opened up talks for Patrick Dorgu. The different reports from Italy suggest that United have already put in the first offer. Now, Fabrizio Romano is reporting that it's going to be about a 40 million euro deal. Apparently, United have bid 24 to 26 million pounds, and I think that's a bit more sort of fair. I'll go to the Fabrizio Romano tweet in a second, but this is exciting. First of all, it's exciting for several reasons. First of all, it is a new signing, obviously, which is always quite exciting. Second of all, it's a young signing, and it's the type of profile that we're now looking at. He's 20 years old. It's not going to be a cheap signing, for example, but we're not going and investing 70, 80, 90 million pounds in a player who's not really proven yet. And the next thing is that he's left back. And so we're finally going and we're really filling a position that we've been crying out to fill for a long, long time. Left back is an absolute disaster. We've got Teo Malacia, rumors that he's going to go on loan. Thank goodness. Luke Shaw, he just can't stay fit. And then we've got Mazraoui Adello, we have to kind of like fill in. Even had Toby Collier filling in. And so we've already brought in Diego Leon, so we've already brought in a 17-year-old left back, for example, and now we're bringing in Patrick Dorgu, hopefully, who is going to be a bit more sort of ready to start playing to begin with. Now, again, if Luke Shaw managed to stay fit, then I think we're in a good position, because then I think you've got Luke Shaw, who we all know is on his day world-class, but can't stay fit for very long, and then you've got somebody like Patrick Dorgu, for example, who's 20 years old. He's been playing a full season in the Serie A, for example, so he's, it's not like he's new to playing at this sort of level. Obviously, we'll need time to adapt in the Premier League, and I think we will give him time, but he's someone who has got plenty of experience and, has been playing at this level. And again, it's an expensive signing, but compared to what we've seen in the past, for example, it's far more palatable. I can get behind a 24, 26 million pound signing for a 20-year-old who's playing in the Serie A, who fits the bill in terms of the type of position we want, and can really hopefully add to us long term. And again, if he comes in and he's really, really good, and we look to sign him, look to sell him in 4 or 5 years' time, then we'll be selling him for a profit. Which we don't do very often. But anybody, for example, that you can bring in for 26, 25 million pounds and becomes a sure-out starter and a nailed-on starter, and he can become potentially really, really good, is a decent signing. Because in this market, 26 million pounds is nothing, isn't it? 26 pounds really isn't a lot of money. So I really, really, really hope that we can get this deal over the line. It adds to us immediately. I think that's also the main thing. It solves immediate problems as well as long-term problems. Now, I personally wouldn't mind more of these deals, but I also wouldn't mind more sort of immediate issue sort of deals, because you look at our the way we're playing at the moment and the team, and we've got to try and bring in people to try and fix this now. I personally am not ready to give up on the season. I don't think we should be sitting here as United going, right, well, the season's a complete write-off. Let's just pack it in and try next season. I still think we've got to be looking at getting results every week. We've got to be looking at trying to find ways of getting further in competitions and climbing that Premier League table. Getting top four. Once again, it's just a massive, massive buckle, because you look at where we were a week ago, for example, and where we could be once. And this is the problem: we keep talking about where we could have been and what could have happened, and I'm so sick of that being the case. Because we went on a bit of almost certain to go on a bit of a run, and then we buckled this past weekend. So we're gonna look at the Premier League table here in just a second, and just show exactly why it was so frustrating to have lost over the weekend, because all the other teams. It's been an interesting season where teams are dropping points. They are dropping points. So this result is incredibly frustrating when you look at the sort of the fixtures we had. And I personally think that Southampton, Brighton, Fulham, Crystal Palace should all have been wins. And I keep saying, you pick up 12 points, I think that you will climb the table. And we'll look at the table in just a second. There is a lot that could have happened if we could have just been a bit more consistent and just been a bit more on the money. So we go look at the table there, and we're languishing down in 30 with 26 points. Had we picked up 3 points, we would have been 29 points, not particularly much higher. But the point is that if you look at everybody else, everyone's dropping points. 29 points, we would be an absolute disaster of a start for United, and yet we would have been less than 10 points behind City in 5th. We would have been 11 points from Chelsea in 4th. And I don't think we are going to potentially, catch up that sort of amount of points. But give yourself the chance, and winning games like the Brighton game is how you give yourself a chance, because you just got to stop picking up points. You've got to stop. We can't keep dropping the points against such poor opposition and expecting to try and climb the Premier League table. There are so many easy ways to go and find 9 points over the season where we should have got 9 points. You look at losing to the Brighton. I think that should have been 3 points. You go back and you look at December. I think we got like 1 point in December, which was that City result. In fact, I think City was actually, so I think City was, so the 3 points in City was the only Premier League points we got. Because we lost to Forest, we lost to Arsenal, lost to Bournemouth, lost to Newcastle, lost to Wolves. So that was 3 out of potentially 15 points. You get 9 out of 15 points and beat Brighton. That would put us 4 points behind top 4. I think. 9, extra 6 plus 9. Yeah, it'll put us 2 points behind top 4. How easy is that? You beat Forest, you beat Bournemouth. Not even, but let's go. You beat Bournemouth, you beat Wolves, and then you beat Brighton. You win those 3 games with 2 points off 4th. We've consistently been 4th. Has been so accessible throughout the season. It's been there for the taking, and we've consistently not been able to deliver on it because we've been so inconsistent. And it's just driving me up the wall that we just cannot seem to ever find any sort of consistency and get a run going. But on the different transfer news, in terms of the departures, that's always the big thing. So obviously Antony to Real Betis, that's hopefully we'll get a confirmation in the next day or two. But the big obviously transfer news is Alejandro Garnacho. Now, Napoli continue to be the front runners, although Chelsea have apparently also inquired about Garnacho. United apparently are very much not pushing to sell him, for example. Not sitting there saying he has to go, but are very open to selling him if we get the right deal. Now, the right deal is supposedly £60 million. Now, I personally think it's probably quite low for what player I think he's going to become. But at the same time, if he doesn't have a future at United and he wants to go, for example, £60 million of pure profit, that does help us. That, for example, will pay for the Dorgu deal and 30 mil change, which we can invest somewhere else. Same thing as when we get whatever we get from Marcus Rashford, hopefully also around 50, 60 million pounds. If we can bank 120 million pounds, that's pure profit. That allows us to go into the window and start looking onto the market and start looking at other players. And these are not players you necessarily want to lose, but at the end of the day, if they don't want to be here, and we can cash on them, then we have to start being quite cutthroat because things are that bad. We don't have the luxury of being able to say we don't need to sell players because we have to. We don't have the luxury of being able to say, oh, well, he's United through and through. He's passionate. We've got to try and keep him. We don't have that luxury. We are in such a bad place as a football club. We've got to now just be cutthroat and say, right, who can we sell? What can we do? Because we've got to try and do basically anything to try and get ourselves back to where we are. Back to even half where we are. Back just to the top 6, top 8 even. Top half of the table right now is what we're taking. I mean, I think we've been in the top half of the table since the first game of the season type of thing. It's been that long. So we've got to try and find any sort of solutions. And it does sound quite cutthroat, going and binning some of our big players and, our academy products and the likes of that. But the opportunity it presents in terms of being able to go to the market is huge. The issue then becomes, who do we replace them with? And that's kind of also the big test for Ineos. It's one thing being able to say, cool, we can sell Garnacho, and we can lose these players. We're willing to lose these players. But if you can continue to sign bad players like Antony, for example, like Attila Malacia, like Casemiro, I suppose, to a certain degree, then there's no point. Then you've lost a Garnacho. You can go on to become a generational player for 60 million pounds, and you squander that 60 million pounds. It's an absolute waste. You sell Garnacho and you use the 60 million pounds to go and sign 2 sure-on starters to add to the system and go help us become a top 4 side. Then you think, we cut the losses, we managed to spend the money well, it was worth it in the end. And that, I think, is probably my biggest fear at the moment, is selling players, replacing badly, and then regretting selling them down the line. You're also saying, what is your ideal signings for the club? Well, we obviously need left backs. I think Alphonso Davies, obviously that whole sort of saga looks like he's not going to renew at Bayern Munich, but I think he would be perfect for the bill. Loves to go forward, full of pace, world class. He's still, 23, 24 years old. Still incredibly young, so still has a long career ahead of him. So I think he would be the perfect type of left back signing. He's 24 years old. But again, it would be big wages. The one thing you have is we've offloaded... in theory, if you offload Marcus Rashford, you offload Casemiro, you've offloaded a reasonable amount of wages, but then you're going to put Alphonso Davies on big wages again, so it doesn't really help. But I think he's a really, really strong candidate. I think we've got to look at another forward, where it's, we're looking at the likes of Djokovic, or whether we're looking at, Victor Osimhen, for example. I do think another striker is very much in the bill, but a striker that maybe suits the system. Højlund's been really poor in the last few weeks. I still believe in Højlund, but he has been really poor. Ironically, Joshua Zirkzee was very, very good against Southampton when he came on. It kind of changed the game. It was pretty, basically absent when it came to Sunday. So we do need to make sure we find a forward. And I do think we need to add to the midfield. Now, who the midfielders we need, I don't know. Whether it's a case of where's Mason Mount going to be playing, for example. Is he going to be playing in the dual 10 roles? Is he going to play a bit deeper? What's the future of Kobe Manu? Ugarte has changed the game. He's changed his team. We probably need a secondary backup to him, because Casemiro is going to probably look to leave. We do need to be able to rotate our squads. So, Ruben Amorim has been quite upfront about that fact. So you probably need to look at another potential defensive midfielder who can do a job, whether it's signing young or promoting within the youth, I'm not sure. But I think a striker, I think we need better wing backs, like Alphonso Davies, for example, comes to a left wing back. So I think those are my priority. After that, probably another midfielder. Goalkeeper, well, Onana needs to decide what kind of goalkeeper he is. I mean, he has games where he's been absolutely brilliant, and then he makes another mistake like Sunday, and you sit there going, whether we're back to where we started. I'll say Binder had a phenomenal game against Arsenal. I don't know if he's the permanent solution, for example, but it's frustrating when you think that United, for years and years and years, Schmeichel, Van der Sar, Tim Howard, in between that cycle, had a really good first season and then a second season. But Van der Sar to De Gea, for example, we've always had one of the top 3-4 best goalkeepers in the league. I don't feel we've got that at the moment. I don't think, or even though Onana at one stage, he actually might still be leading the Golden Glove race in terms of the clean sheets. I'm very, very surprised. But despite that, I don't consider him the top 5 goalkeepers in the league. And if that's not the case, then that's a problem. Because I think having a good goalkeeper and a great goalkeeper is so, so important at a club like United. And I just miss having that. in all honesty. But we're going to wrap up there for today. We're going to hopefully have a confirmation later about the Antony to Real Batista news. So as soon as we get more updates on that, we will release a video. But apart from that, we'll be live once again tomorrow at 9 a.m. UK time. So please join us then. Please do smash like the video. Please do subscribe. Nice to have somebody else in the comments. So welcome, Yasu Solano. Hopefully we'll see you again tomorrow morning and throughout the rest of the week. I don't know if we're giving you a watch along on Thursday. We will confirm what's happening there as well. We did one last week. It wasn't too bad, but obviously we're still quite small and still trying to build. So any support will be absolutely brilliant. And also, you can find us on all the different socials, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, the works. But